Hello and welcome to Intro to Photography. I like to start all my photography classes with this quote. It takes a lot of imagination to be a good photographer. In photography, everything is so ordinary, it takes a lot of looking before you learn to see the extraordinary. My challenge to you is as you're exploring your world, as you have your camera with you, stop and look at things. Stop and try to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. And as you're looking at things, use your camera as a tool to find those extraordinary bits in your ordinary world. This takes some learning, it takes some slowing down, but it's good to slow down. It's good to look at our world. It's good to explore it and engage it in a new way. And your camera can be a really fun tool to do that. So how does this class work? We have one textbook in this class. It's called Better Photo Basics, and it's a great book. It dives into a lot of technical details about how to take certain kinds of photos, how to make your photos look better. It's a really good how-to book. Our weekly assignments will come straight out of this book, so it's really important that you get it and you read it carefully. We'll also be reading some extra articles that deal with some larger, big ideas about photography, like ethics, philosophy, how do we use photography? How does it affect us? Things like that. Each week, I'll be making a video like this one that has a slideshow and has some tutorials. And hopefully this kind of expands upon what's in the book, but then also will show you some of the more technical aspects of like how does it actually work on your camera. And then after you read the readings and look at the videos, there'll be some quizzes, and then we'll have a discussion. If you've ever taken an online class before, you know that on Thursday you need to write your initial post, and then on Saturday you need to respond to 2 of your classmates' posts. And then the most important part of this class is taking photos. Your weekly ALA will be a photography assignment. Make sure that you're diving in. Spend a lot of time taking photos. That's what this class is about, and that's the fun of it. So, how do you get better at photography since we are in a photography class? You may be a beginner, or you may have a lot of experience at photography. Either way, the way to keep getting better is to take a lot of photos. Just like I said before, spend time taking photos. Spend some time diving in and exploring how does your camera work? What does it do? What happens if you put it on this setting? Take some pictures and look at what you actually get. What happens if you push this button? The more that you're comfortable with your camera, the more you'll actually be able to produce the kind of photos that you want to produce. As you're taking photos, a really key part of getting better at photography is taking the time to stop and look at the photographs that you're actually taking. So, if you're out and about and you took a photo of a flower, before you walk on, stop, look at those photos of the flower, and think to yourself, could I take a better photo? What would happen? Would it be better if I got closer or farther away? Would it be better if I moved around so the lighting looks different? Is the focus clear? Do I need to make sure that retake a photo that has better focus? And so if you stopped in the setting where you're taking the picture and looked at the photo, then it's much easier to go back in and take a better photo if you need a better photo. And let's be honest, our first photo is never the best photo. So get in the habit of stop and look at the photographs you're actually taking before you get home to your computer so that you can go back in and get the best photograph possible in the moment. And then a really important way to get better at photography is to ask for and receive feedback. The way this class is built, you'll be getting feedback from me. You'll be getting feedback from your classmates. Make sure you read that feedback and incorporate it into how you are taking pictures. The more that you sort of build off of the feedback you get, the better you'll get. So if we're in a photography class, it's important that you have a camera. You have 2 options in this class. The best option is a DSLR. or a camera with manual controls. You may have a mirrorless camera, which is brand new technology. You may have an older point and shoot. But if you have a camera with manual controls, it's going to give you a lot more flexibility to be able to take the kind of photos that you want to take. So if you have access to one, can borrow one, that's going to be the best option for this class. If you don't have one, you can use a cell phone, and you'll be using a camera app for that cell phone. So I'll show you what both of these look like. But whatever you're using, again, the more time you spend just kind of playing around with and figuring out what it actually does, what the different settings do, what the different buttons do, get comfortable with your camera. That is one of the best things that you can do this week. So now let's talk about what you need to do for this class. At the end of each week, you're going to do something that's called an ALA, an Applied Learning Activity. And again, for this class, that means you're taking photos. Here are a few announcements and expectations for this class. Plan on spending about 5 hours taking pictures each week. This is the most important part of your class. It's the biggest part of your grade. And there is a correlation between the amount of time you spend on taking pictures and the quality of pictures that you will get. So spend some time on that. You are welcome to do it in one big 5-hour session or break it up into a couple of sessions. I generally recommend breaking it up into a couple of sessions. What this means is like you can go take some pictures, come back, put them up on your computer, evaluate them, and then go back in and again take better photos because you've had a chance to look at them and think through like, how could I do this better? Keep track of your time. Part of this class you'll be submitting your time. It'll be a very small part of your grade. But again, it's kind of just a way of emphasizing like the time you spend on this really matters for getting better at photography. When you're keeping track of your time, these 5 hours can include the time that you're taking photos, the time that you're actually just wandering around looking for things to photograph. So that time you're sort of slowly moving around the world, seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary. If you're setting up things to photograph, it can include that. So sometimes you need to rearrange everything because the actual taking of pictures is rather quick, but all the stuff before and after does take a long time. So give yourself time to do those things. And it can include like the time that it takes to look at your photos so that you can keep getting better photos. One thing to let you know, an expectation for this class is you need to be taking new photos each week. There's a chance that you have a lot of photos in your photo file, and some of those photos might apply to some of the assignments. But in order to actually be applying the learning that we're doing, you need to be taking new photos each week for the ALAs. So please don't use old photos. Each week I post a PDF with the assignment instructions and expectations. Make sure you are reading these PDFs in detail. They have very specific instructions. They also include example photographs from previous students, so you can kind of get a sense of what other people have done with the assignment. And they have grading criteria. And you can always look at the rubric on the online system to see the grading criteria for every assignment. It's a good idea to look at these assignment sheets earlier in the week so that you can have a chance to like think through and plan your photo session. Having it sit in your brain means you'll come up with a better idea than if you suddenly open this up at 5 p.m. on Sunday night and realize, oh, I need to take a lot of photos. So let it sit in your brain for a while. Again, the ALA is the most important part of this class. It's taking the photos. After you take your photos, ideally you're taking a lot of photos each week, but you're going to be picking 2 each week to post on a class Google album. So we use Google Photos, and it's a way that everyone can see the other photos people are taking, and so we can critique them and learn through that, learn through the critiques. Please join that Google album. ASAP. And then when you post your photos, make sure you label them. So the instructions will tell you how I want you to label them. It's generally your last name, underscore, whatever week it is, week 1, week 2, week 3, and then the specific part of the assignment. So it might be up close or far away this week. And then there will also be a prompt for writing a description in the comments section. And usually that's something about the process that you went through and the thoughts that you had while you were taking that photograph. But make sure you do that according to the instructions on that assignment PDF. So what are you going to be doing this week? This week, the challenge is to get an up-close picture and a far-away picture. So what I want you to do is find a situation where you can take one picture that's up close, like a detail picture. So it could be a flower, a leaf, a toy. It can be like a part of the whole, like a hubcap on a car. And then I want you to take one faraway picture, so where you have the whole. So some examples could be like a flower in a field of flowers, or a flower in a backyard. Or you could do a leaf or a tree in comparison to the forest, or a door or a building in comparison to the street. You could have a rock or a shell in comparison to the entire beach. But look around, what do you see? Everything is a part of a whole, so there's many opportunities for the up close and far away. Although, please do try to find a far away picture that has some distance in it. So, for example, my raccoon that I've been taking pictures of, I could get up close to it, but I can't really get far away from it unless I really, really back up. And this room is small, so that's harder to do. So that wouldn't be ideal. And also, ideally, you're finding a situation where both the up close and the far away are interesting pictures. They don't just happen to fit the bill, but they actually make good pictures. As you're taking pictures, use the opportunity to experiment with the different camera modes. See what they do. See what works best in each situation. I do expect that you have good focus and good exposure in both of these pictures, so spend a lot of time making sure you get that. And then on the assignment sheet, there are student examples, but each week I also want to go through inspiration by really famous and really high-level professional photographers. So this is Edward Weston, and Edward Weston is known for his close-up pictures. And he does this really dramatic lighting, and he takes ordinary things. For example, this is a cabbage leaf, but he makes it look extraordinary. So it's lit and photographed in such a way that it looks like a ball gown, swirling out from some dancer. It just looks gorgeous and beautiful and intriguing. And sometimes his photographs, his cabbages look like brains. They kind of they take on like human qualities to them, even though a lot of times what he photographs is just vegetables. So here's another example of a bell pepper. And you can see the way he's lit it. You just really see the shape and the form of the bell pepper. It looks nice. You can see all the texture. The focus is crystal clear. There's no weird blurry parts in it. So that's Edward Weston, a cabbage and a bell pepper. And for our far away inspiration, we have Ansel Adams. So Ansel Adams was known for going around to all the national parks and taking pictures. And he takes these epic landscape shots. He often finds days that have interesting clouds and interesting lighting in them. And you can see the focus is clear from near to far. And the textures are beautiful. They're just lovely. Here's another one of a different national park and a different landscape. He includes a lot in his photographs, but he fills the frame in a really interesting way. It's not just empty sky or empty sea below. There's shadow and texture, and this one before, you can see the river winding through the composition in a really interesting way. So some things to notice about Edward Weston and Ansel Adams, they both fill the frame in really interesting ways. So they find what's the subject and they use it to fill the frame of the photograph. And both of them make use of really dramatic lighting. So Edward Weston makes the lighting with studio lighting. Ansel Adams finds it by waiting for the right moment of the day. And that lighting brings out the textures in everything. So we've got the textures of the vegetables with Edward Weston and the textures of the landscape with Ansel Adams. The black and white nature of both of their photos also emphasizes the textures. So black and white photos are really good for things with texture and pattern. So that's Ansel Adams and Edward Weston. If you go back through the slideshow, you notice that some of the examples I use in the other slides were also Edward Weston or Ansel Adams. If you ever see a photographer that you're like, oh, I love their stuff, please Google them. There's a lot of amazing photographers out there, and obviously these photographers did more than just 2 photos in their career. So look at, they can be really inspiring to look at how really good photographers have taken really good photographs. So dive in. Just a side note, some of the other photographs I'm using in these slideshows, you can tell they come from Unsplash, which is a lovely source of good photography that's free to use. And then occasionally I'll pull bad examples just straight from Google. So if you're wondering where the photographs come from, those are my main sources of finding photographs. All right, we have reached the end of this week's instructional video. Go forth and photograph. If you ever have questions, please email your instructor, message your instructor, and they will get back to you, and just have fun with your camera.